Hey everyone, it's me, Rashid. I'm your anthropologist and sociologist. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel, donate the links below, check my notes on Amazon. Quick video. Let's read Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. And let's go to Proverbs chapter 22, verse 1. A good name is rarer to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor than silver and gold. Now, to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1. Now, the second part, it says that the day of death, the day of one's birth. Well, this is not quite motivating. That my Father wants us to live. And that's why when Christ comes back, he will resurrect everyone, both good and bad. But just know, what the writer meant here is the following. When you're born, you're new to the world. You're new on earth. You weren't here before. People don't know what to expect from you because you have no history. You're just a baby. When an individual passes away, it's over. They can't do anything else anymore. You know what they've done. If they ended up being a bad, toxic, or wasteful human being during their lifetime, then you can learn from their life how not to be, how things can be better. If someone was a quality human being during their lifetime, now you can celebrate the contribution they made. Now, this is not how many people think today. We would say, man, the day you're born, great, you're new on earth. But this individual spoke from another perspective. He spoke from the perspective of a legacy. He was saying is, listen, it's not just about you alive today. Your parents, grandparents, everyone that came before you, they lived life and they passed away eventually. Now, if your parents are still alive, that's good. For some of us who've lived longer, or for some of us who sounds a bit different, our parents are already gone, or one of them. Anyway, those came before you, their bodies have expiration dates, just like your body has an expiration date. So they will be gone one day, and you'll be gone one day. We all know that, and it's Christ that will resurrect us when he comes back. So understand this. Those that came before you, they had an impact with their lives. Some of their lives had a small impact only locally, others had an impact more regionally, others had a quote-unquote global impact. Anyway, they had an impact, whether good or for bad. The impact of your ancestors' lives generated a legacy that affects you. Okay, let's say now that your grandfather and great-grandfather or great-grandmother or grandmother, let's say some of your ancestors locally were hard-working, kind people. And you're the descendant. That doesn't have to mean that you are hardworking and kind. It could be you're a lazy bum. Nevertheless, because you have this legacy of your close ancestors being hardworking and kind people, this reputation will work out in your favor because people are associating you with the lives of your ancestors. In this case, your ancestors already passed away. It's already confirmed how they were. And if their influence was proper, you now reap the benefits of it. And that's nothing to do with you. It's something you've inherited from them. Now, let's give another example. Let's say now you had a grandfather, great-grandfather, or great-grandmother, grandmother, or anyway, you have anyone in your bloodline that became wealthy, but in a negative way, by exploiting, harming other people. It could be that because of this, financially, you grew up in a household without any care for cash. That has anything to do with you? No. It's just that your parents had cash coming for them because they came from a background with a lot of cash. But the wealth was accumulated in a negative way. Okay, it's not you. You were not that ancestor that did all those horrible things to other people and became rich off of it. Now, I mean, the group that your ancestors were part of a generation of people because riches or to a group, wealth to an individual. But anyway, it wasn't you. You didn't commit all those crimes. Nevertheless, your upbringing and the financial ease you had in life is not on you. You didn't choose for it. You didn't ask for it. Nevertheless, it will be associated with the wrongdoing of your ancestor who obtained that wealth. Because so if you look at it, the reason you grew up with a financial advantage is because a few decades ago, one of your ancestors committed crimes and accumulated this wealth in a harmful way. You can't get away from that. Even though you are not the one who committed those crimes decades ago because you didn't even exist yet, you're still associated with it. So, you cannot be blamed for what your ancestor did. Hell no, absolutely not. Because you weren't there, you didn't participate. Nevertheless, you are part of that legacy. What you can do is use your financial leverage to be a better and safer human being towards the community. If you do that, you have redeemed the past of your family and you have made up in the present the wrongdoings of your ancestors. Now, that doesn't mean that what your ancestors did disappeared, that the consequences are undone. No, what happened, happened. We're going to change what happened, but we have to deal with what happened in the now in a practical way. If you think, man, those were my ancestors, were not me, not do with me, it has to do with you. Because if they then did all of that, you, the descendant, wouldn't have all this advantage. So if you act like you don't owe anyone anything, you show them the same narcissistic attitude they had, and you're actually just like them. So if you misuse or you're neglectful with your financial advantage right now, you're continuing that legacy of abuse and exploitation of your ancestors. And in that case, you cannot say, well, it was my ancestors, it wasn't me. No, it wasn't you. But you still took advantage of it. And you also continue the same attitude. Because you could have denied the inheritance or decided, I want to be part of this later as adults. You didn't. You want to take that advantage and act like you don't want anything. Well, it doesn't go that way. So, a reputation is just about you. Look, maybe it's not your ancestors. Maybe your parents moved to a neighborhood. But the neighborhood they moved to was a ghetto. Now, your parents were not from the ghetto, but you grew up in a ghetto because that's the only place your parents was able to afford. Or maybe your parents passed away when you were a child and you end up in foster care. Anyway, let's say you grew up in a ghetto. That reputation of that ghetto is something that's associated with you. So if people find out you're from the ghetto, they will associate ghetto-ness with you. Now, you don't have to be a criminal. You don't have to be someone with a bad mentality. Absolutely not. Doesn't matter. Your reputation is associated with the place you grew up with. What you can do is outgrow the ghetto you grew up in, and now you will develop a better reputation for yourself. Now, what if you grew up in a neighborhood that was considered well-off? Now, it could be that you as a human being yourself, you have a bad attitude, you don't communicate well with people, but because you are considered from a good background, that is a reputation that will benefit you, even by your own character flaws are hindering you. Now, I'm not saying that you have to freeload of your background. That's not even possible in the long run. Because even if you're from a background that enjoys a good reputation, if you yourself on purpose continues to act like a bitch or an asshole, you will end up having a bad reputation anyway. And you miss the reputation of those around you. So, what I'm saying is that reputation matters. And it's one thing I want you to get through to you. A name is quite powerful. Imagine there is an event. Let's say there's a fashion event. But the fashion event is hosted by local shops in the neighborhood. Well, if you're from the neighborhood, you may be interested to come. What if you hear that Dior, Chanel, Gucci, Versace, Louis Vuitton, or one of those big fashion houses is sponsoring an event? Immediately, because of the name associated with the sponsorship, a lot of people think, what? Louis Vuitton? Chanel? Gucci? What? A lot of people come. Let's say now you want to go to the bank because you want to finance a fashion event. If you go to the bank and say you want to finance a fashion event and we need like $300,000 for it, well, the bank's going to look at your income, your liabilities, whatever, and they may say go to friends and family or do a fundraising and all that. But if you show them proof, it could be a signed letter or an email, a confirmed email, that some CEO of some big fashion house like Chanel or whoever is sponsoring or in support or just endorse your event. If you can show that, that association alone means that a lot of people are going to pay attention to this event. Why? Because of the name that's associated with it. Someone like the CEO of a big fashion house like Louis Vuitton or Chanel or whatever, they have a reach of millions of people. So if that name falls with the name of the fashion house, it's going to trigger millions of people. So millions of people are going to be interested in what happened over there. Even if they are not able to come in person themselves, they want to look it up. So your event became $1 million event just by the people that endorsed it. So now the bank must say, hey, your event is worth tens of millions of dollars based alone on who's endorsing it. So you know what? You say you need 200,000, maybe you need 5 million, you need 6 million, just let us know. And that's how it goes. What I'm telling you is that someone's name is powerful. For example, Julius Caesar. Now, he passed away a long time ago. But historically speaking, his name is quite powerful. Cleopatra. Or think about Rome. Or the Huns. Or the Han dynasty. Or Mansa Musa. Or Solomon. Now, historical names also have an impact. When you mention them, people feel triggered because it deals with the legacies of people who left behind something significant. When you say Judas Iscariot or Judas, a lot of people may cringe. Why? Because there's also a legacy attached to it, but a negative legacy of betrayal. Mention Jack the Ripper. It also has an impact, but a negative impact. So names have an impact, whether for good or for bad. Both historical names as well as names of people or businesses or things from the present. Names are so powerful that people will decide whether or not they want to deal with you or be involved with you based on the name you're associated with. For example, there are people from African descent. They're descendant from people from the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa's official name was Alkebulan, which means the Garden of Eden. Africa was the name later given to it. Nevertheless, there are people out there. You can do a DNA test and it proves that they're related closely to some tribes in the west of Africa. But you show them those people and say, no, I'm not from Africa, I'm not doing it. And they become very emotional. Now, it doesn't matter whether their ancestry in Africa dates back to the transatlantic slave trade or dates back long before the slave trade. Because it could be they had ancestors who moved out of West Africa to the Americas centuries even before Christopher Columbus made that voyage. In that case, they had ancestry in the Americas long before the transatlantic slave trade began. But eventually, even that ancestry has a link back to Africa. But they will never want to associate themselves with Africa. You know why? Because in mainstream media and in textbooks and in schools, Africa was often associated with poverty, backwardness, crime, instability, diseases. And because of this bad name, this bad reputation that the name Africa carries, anytime people say they're from African descent, it triggers negative association in people's minds. And if people emotionally associate you with negative things, they will reflect this in their behavior. So that's why some people, even though they're from African descent, and it can be proven, they never want to associate themselves with Africa, even show them proof. They get hyper emotional because they feel traumatized being associated with Africa. You may have someone who 6 generations ago, that their grandmother that was from South Asia. Now, this great grandmother, 6 generations ago, was the only one in their bloodline from India. And this individual goes from saying, I'm part Indian, over and over again. But you look at it, their parents are not from India, their grandparents are not from India, because always six generations ago, was only one female in their bloodlines, a great grandmother 6 generations ago. But they don't want to talk about their own cultural heritage they have. Why? It could be that their own cultural heritage is racially discriminated against in the mainstream media. And because of this, they want to look for something to deviate from the actual heritage. It could be that someone has a Chinese heritage somewhere in Southeast Asia. But it could be that the country they live in has this negative bias against people from Chinese descent. So now this individual is a bit tent. And because 6 generations ago there was a great-great-grandmother from India who married one of their ancestors, they don't keep referring to their link with India. But thing is, can they go to India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka, one of those countries today, and ask for citizenship because 6 generations ago one of them came from the area? No. If they call themselves Indian, or saying I'm from India or I'm from Bharat, the actual name of India, people look at them and think, no, you're not. You're from that country, Southeast Asia, and everyone around you speaks Chinese. You look like a Chinese also, but a bit that. In this case, there's nothing wrong with their Chinese heritage and nothing wrong with the Indian heritage, but the fact they kept referring to the Indian heritage is because locally their Chinese heritage has a bad name. I want you to understand this well. Human beings, overall, even those who are reprobate, they do not want to be associated or put in the same category as something evil or negative. Even people who do evil always come with an excuse why they do evil. Oh, they deserved it, or they got it coming for them, or if I didn't do, someone else would do it. They always come with an excuse to make them appear better than they really are. Why? Because even our human minds cannot harmonize being associated with something negative. It's just a human thing. Now, because names are so powerful, that is why countries want to dictate what the children in the population learn at school. Because if you were taught in school that your country fought for its freedom from oppression, that's the origin of the country, in the minds of the children, their country has a good name, a good reputation. Oh, the people that found this country, whether they were my ancestors directly or not, or maybe you're an immigrant that moved over there, anyway, the country you're part of now, people that founded it several generations ago, they fought for their freedom. So this country is based on principle of freedom. That's what you think. But hold on a minute. As an adult, when you do your own research, you realize, hold on a minute, none of it is true. But why did they tell you this myth when you grew up? They distorted facts of history to generate a story, and they told you this in school while growing up, because that would shape how you think and feel about the country. And because you felt a certain positive way about the country you grew up in, this will reflect in your willingness to contribute to the country. This will reflect back in your behavior, how you treat your fellow citizens in the country. And this is what the government wanted, for you to be a contributing citizen. And the way they trick you to become a citizen is by associating a good name with the country. Because if they would have been honest and real to you about the scandals associated with the founding of the country, it would be reality, it would be real, but it would have made you reconsider whether you want to be part of this legacy. So, for example, when it comes to the United States, they don't talk about the founding fathers, these European men who fought against this European government in Britain, considering unjust tax, all of that. But they seldom talk about the Trail of Tears, the land theft from the indigenous Americans. They don't emphasize the controversies relating to the funding of the country. They don't properly address the Louisiana Purchase, all of that. Why? Because if they would do the full picture and show you the raw truth of what was going on, the way you would feel about the United States of America would be completely different. So by telling you a myth that put the country in a good daylight, they trigger patriotism, which will result in a lot of people being law-abiding citizens and want to preserve the country. So then, when a foreigner comes, or someone from the United States itself, who actually did research and tells you dominate it, what we were taught about the founding fathers was a myth, you tend to oppose them. You tend to go off at them. Why? Because your whole identity is based on the good reputation of the United States. But once you realize this good reputation is fabricated, it will also have an effect you mentally and everyone you're associated with. But because a good chance is that all the people you get along with in life, you all believe the founding myth of the United States. And that is one of the factors that contribute to your self-worth. So if everyone you're involved with in life, locally, or just in your friend group, have their self-worth based on the founding myth of the United States and associated with it, and you find out that this founding myth was just a myth, it's going to cause a mental breakdown in you, and you also have a difficult time staying in those friendships. You now need another basis for those friendships. And what if those other people don't want to own up to the truth about the matter? Now, you can't get along with those friends and family anymore. So, no, not everyone is open to the truth. They just want things to remain smooth and easy so they can escape. That's something for you to be mindful of. Not everyone is willing to accept and process the truth. They just want to escape and be left alone and unchallenged. The moment the truth comes and they're forced to face things, own up to things, it's going to get more difficult for them, and we're going to blame you. Because they're going to say, well, I never asked for this, blah, 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 and they're going to take it out on you. Even though it's not your fault, they were lied to and tricked, they're still going to associate the mental breakdown with you and blame you for it and take it out on you. Even if they don't take it out on you, they will still blame you for it and become hostile and bitter towards you. So watch out with this. Don't cause your pearls for swine, please. Because it only causes you unnecessary trouble. So understand, names carry power. Names in themselves don't have any power, but they carry power based on what's associated with those names historically and in the present. Now, if you have someone starting, let's say, a company, and they say, well, this is me, I graduated university, I'm hardworking, blah, 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 and they start a business. Okay, that's something based on their own reputation individually. What's going to happen is people are going to look at this individual's background, saying, oh, you're from Texas, correct? This U.S. state. There are quite some people like you in Texas who do things like this. Based on that, in people's mind, you're from a legacy of entrepreneurship from Texas. And based on that, they'll feel more comfortable being associated with you, so you're more likely to get customers. But what if you're from, I don't know, some place in the state of New York that's associated with a lot of crime, prostitution, low education, single motherhood, whatever. And people don't realize, don't mean it. You're like one of the only people, or one of the very few, from your background doing this. It's going to be a whole different dynamic. Now, people are going to be a bit more hesitant being associated with you. Because, first of all, because you're one of the few doing this, you may not have a backup from the community. So you may have a lot of people who are not okay with what you're doing, out of spite, jealousy, envy. You could be a perfectly good guy or good woman with good intention, good quality. But if people don't see a backup from your own community, they know that there are people upset with what you're doing. So the moment they associate with you, they also get the anger and the wrath of those people on them. So associating with you automatically will trigger enemies towards them. So people are going to be a bit more hesitant in dealing with you. But what if now you move to a whole nother place, marry into another location, and you only mention that location you move to or marry to, and that other location has a bad reputation? Now, they will also trigger a more positive outcome when you start your own business. This is human psychology. And in anthropology, we study how human psychology shapes cultures. And let me tell you, there is nobody out there that can start a business or any project and it succeeds without being attached to a name that sounds positive in people's ears. So understand this well. It could be that you, the human being, there's something wrong with you because you're improving, you're repenting, and all of that. But it could be that who or what you're associated with has a bad name. Rashid, that's not fair. It isn't fair. It's just the reality of how human beings operate. If you're associated with someone or something that has a bad reputation, that bad reputation is going to affect you and how people treat you. So what you can do is show with receipts that this place or these people you're associated with are not as bad as people think they are. And by doing this now, you can improve the reputation or the quality of the name you're associated with, and that'll work out better for you. They call this branding or rebranding something. Every company out there does branding. Branding is how you position yourself in the public. And every company, every organization, even every government or country wants to brand themselves in a positive manner. Why? Because if you brand yourself in a negative manner, nobody in right mind does that to begin with. And this is why media is so powerful. Whether it's mainstream media or social media, if, for example, you have a company that at first had a good reputation for decades, but now all these scandals come out of social media for horrible people being treated over there, and that the company was even involved in human trafficking and other criminal activity, guess what? The good name of the company is over. They now have a bad reputation. Maybe 1 year ago or 10 years ago, you mentioned that company's name. People thought, wow, you work at that company? Impressive. And because they see on your resume or your cover letter you worked at that specific company, it triggered them and say, we want to hire you. But now, people used to work at that company or were still working there. If they mention that in a job interview or resume, others may be triggered, they may be hesitant to hire them at a new job. That's how powerful names are. And what does this mean for you? I want you to understand the following. It should be like this, that people examine things before they act. That's how it should be. However, is that how things go out there? Historically speaking and today? No. Most people out there, they don't examine things. Because to examine things, you also need to self-reflect first. And self-reflection itself is a painful thing for a lot of people. People rather project dysfunction or defects that are of themselves onto others, or they will deny things and exaggerate the effects of others. I mean, escapism is a big problem in the human species ever since the fall of Adam. So most people are not into self-reflection and examining stuff. They're not. If that was the case, the world would have improved thousands of years ago. It's a defect of the human species that people want to escape. And that's why all the evil and long-term violence continues on the earth. Simple as that. But of course, people want to own up to the fact they're part of that. You always want to blame, those are the terrorists who do that. Those are the criminals doing that. I'm not that bad. People always want to redeem their own name or act like they're not responsible for being part of the world's violence. Even if there's proof that they're enabling it by not calling it out and not outgrowing the negativity of the world. If you're not outgrowing the negativity of the world, you're part of the iniquity. If you're part of iniquity, you want the reason why it continues. Simple as that. But people don't want to own up to that. They always want another group of people to blame and act like they're innocent. Why? Because, naturally speaking, if they admit they're part of the iniquity and they have no good reason for being part of it, there's never good reason for part of iniquity anyway, guess what? They'll lose all credibility in towards themselves. And this will lead to mental breakdowns, like other mental health and physical health issues, and will also lead to people becoming extremely uncomfortable when they're dealing with one another. And out of this discomfort, you may have people lose their mind, becoming violent, you have domestic violence, all of this. Because people don't want to go to all of this or face all of this, they just want a fall guy or a fall woman. They want people that they can blame for all everything goes wrong, and they now are seen as innocent compared to those other people. That's how society works. People often are not going to investigate and look into things. People are more likely to believe the first report they hear. Or people rather follow their first impression of you. Now, their impression of you is based on their own perception and their past. So people should self-reflect to see whether their own perception is correct or not. That's their responsibility to do that, not yours. Nevertheless, they will judge you and treat you based on their perception, is based on their thinking and their past. And if they have an impression of you, and later they have to admit they were wrong, they actually are disproving their own worldview, and actually showing that they're not credible, not trustworthy, because they don't self-reflect, and they just get along with people based on assumptions. Nobody wants to be about themselves. That's why in the world they teach you a good impression is very important, because people often don't want to revisit their own decisions. If people see you for the first time and they kind of don't become interested in you, or they don't like you, whatever, that's their perception of you. It doesn't mean that that's true. If they later have to admit they were wrong, they'll have to admit that they can't be trusted, because they treat people based on how they perceive them, not how those people actually are. And who in the right mind wants to deal with someone like that? So if a lot of people don't like you based on their perception of you, and later it's proven their perception was wrong, that means that they were actually harming you and your reputation based on what they were feeling. Who want to hire people like that at a job? Who want to be associated with someone like that? Who wants to marry into people like that? Nobody. So that's why in the world, people often hold on to their first impression of you, or the first report they hear of you. So let's say now you have an ex-partner, an ex-wife, or an ex-husband, and they are a narcissist, and they keep murmuring, complaining about you, talking shit about you all the time. But guess what? They're only ventilating unrest. They talk crap about you behind your back, but they never show any proof. What should happen is people should tell me, listen, stop bothering us complaining about your ex, and you offer no proof. Even if this individual is so horrible, what did you do about the situation? What did you do with yourself? Don't get me wrong. The people there that your narcissist ex-partner is complaining to and murmuring to, they clearly can see that individuals are out of their mind. But the thing is, they have to call it out and say, you know what? We're not going to listen to this individual anymore. If they don't show any proof that they've learned from their past, they're willing to improve and become better, that they only are dumping on the rest onto us. So who is responsible, and whose fault is it if that ex-partner of yours keep murmuring, complaining about you behind your back? Those people are, because they're the ones position themselves to be receptors of his complaining. If they say we don't want to hear these usual complaints, guess what's going to happen? Your narcissist ex-partner cannot do a smear campaign anymore. But the fact your narcissist ex-partner is able to do these smear campaigns because people are willing to listen to it, and that's their fault. So let's say now your narcissist ex-partner did a smear campaign about you. The reason the smear campaign even happened was because people were able to listen and give heed to it. So when people then see you, they're going to become comfortable with you. Why they're uncomfortable with you, as you never did anything wrong with them? They don't know you, never even met you before. Here's why. If they heard shit about you, and they called out individual talking shit about you, asked for proof, and the individual couldn't offer any proof and say, you know what, we don't deal with it anymore, they'll be confident meeting you, saying, hey, yo, listen, that weirdo was talking crap about you. What goes on? But if they had no interest in self-reflecting in their own lives, let alone, they won't have any interest in reflecting on anything else, and they heard all this negativity, guess what? They had to admit, okay, this individual is pumping negativity into us. Why are we putting up with this? They didn't call it out when it happened. They just, like a sponge, received negativity that was told about you. So when they see you, it reflects back onto their mind. Hold on a minute. Why did I keep listening to negative information about this individual without calling it out? What the heck is wrong with me? So seeing you will be a confrontation towards themselves about themselves. Seeing you or your name being mentioned, it backfires on them. And they get uncomfortable. Is it your fault that your presence or your name backfires on them? No. They should not have been open up to hearing and listening to negativity about you that couldn't be proved. So now when they see you or hear about you, they have to own up that they're not stable and they're not reliable nor credible themselves. And because they want to lose credibility and suffer all those consequences, they're not going to blame you. They're going to associate that discomfort they have with you. And it's true. It's only when you are around or they hear about you, they feel discomfort. But it's nothing to do with you. That's to do with themselves and their narcissistic attitude. by enabling or putting themselves in a situation to participate in a smear campaign. So now they'll either avoid you, or if they can't avoid you, they will blame you for their discomfort, and they will either act like everything the narcissist was talking about you is true, or they will try to find excuses for themselves to have issues against you. Why are they looking for excuses to dislike you for issue against you? Why? Because they don't want to admit that they failed in being properly human. They don't want to admit that they complied with the smear campaign just to get relief. They want to admit this about themselves. So because they want to go to bed at night, sleeping well, without being in trouble with themselves, they want to associate all this mental discomfort with you. So, unfortunately in the world, a lot of reprobates, whether narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, get away with their smear campaigns because of this tendency to escape and follow mankind, which implies people don't self-reflect, not reflecting those around them. Someone who self-reflects continuously will also reflect when he hears things about other people. And such an individual, 9 out of 10 times, would recognize smear campaign from the start and say, I don't want to be around this. That individual will be more confident meeting other people, including people that are wrongly spoken of. Because that individual say, okay, maybe what you're saying about you is true, maybe not, but I'm not just going to go off what I'm hearing. I want receipts. But people who don't self-reflect, they just get along with what society wants, just to be left alone and get a pat on the back. And the moment it's proven what society was telling them is wrong, they have to account for why they just believe everything, why they do their own research. And then to save their own face and their own quote-unquote good reputation, which is based on falsehood, they will attack you. That's how it often goes. So listen, that's why it's quite important, especially as a believer, not to give anyone an excuse to talk negative about you. Now, this does not mean that you're entering toxic people-pleasing, always acting to make everyone happy all the time, because that will backfire on you anyway. What you're about to do is you're going to act and behave to the best of your ability in a Christ-centered way. And by doing that, anytime people come with a smear campaign against you or they talk crap behind your back, it's going to backfire. Both on those talking the crap about you behind your back and those who are listening towards it. Because people are going to say, why are we listening to this individual talking crap about this individual, but we only see good fruit of this individual? Or why are, or you know what I mean? So we cannot prevent people deciding to look down on us or treat us badly. We can't prevent people from thinking negative about us. That's them, that's their problem, that's their defect. What we can do and should do is take away opportunity for them to get away doing it. Now, they shouldn't be negative towards you to begin with. Absolutely not. There's never an excuse for that. However, if you yourself have some defects that you're not owning up to, they can use it as an excuse for why they're negative against you or why they're talking bad about you. Don't allow people to have excuses against you. Okay? If they decide to be negative, that's on them. They're going to be negative anyway. And if they can't be negative towards you, they will look for another figure to be negative towards. Just make sure there's no excuse towards you. All right? So, that's why we need to also watch out who we associate with, especially as believers. Look, if you have a fellow believer, and this fellow believer doesn't walk by faith, they don't walk in power, so continuously they're always in trouble or in some misfortune, that this believer is bad news. Because they're not obeying their Father, no power is flowing through them, and by doing that, they're making their Father look bad. Because we will think, how can this guy be a believer serving the Almighty God, but they always are in trouble all the time? Or what if you have a believer who has smooth success all the time, everybody go everything's so smooth for them? People can think, hold on a minute, how can this be a wicked world? And you claim to serve the Heavenly Father, walk in the light, but the darkness doesn't have an issue with you. So when you have a believer that's either compromised, and that's why I think the world embraces them, or they are compromised in the fact that they're a victim all the time. What I'm telling you is, being around a believer like that itself will weigh you down and bring you harm. Association with beliefs like that can be quite harmful towards you. Some of these beliefs become paranoid. So the name of Christ will associate with paranoia now. Will also be a harmful thing for you. And what happened throughout history is a lot of people began to call themselves Christian or believer. And those people were either not believers at all, they used the name of Christ, just for their own personal gain, and abused others in the name of Christ. So over time, the name of Christ got debased in the public. So a lot of people wouldn't be associated with the name of Christ now, even if they're true believers, because of the bad outcomes it triggers on them. And that's understandable. But now you have a lot of pagans out there who are associated with resistance against church abuse. And because of that, the names of the pagan religions have a bad reputation now. If those pagans would associate themselves with the classical paganism of ancient times, people think, what the heck is this? Because the classical paganism of ancient times is close to Satanism. Blood sacrifice and all those things. So even when it comes to things like religious movements or philosophical movements, the name matters. Now, I want you to reflect on this, and I want you to realize that what you associate with will shape you, whether for good or for bad. Now, this does not mean that you always have to be anxious and fearful and paranoid, always looking what others prefer and give in to it. No, don't go into toxic people pleasing. If people start to think bad about you or something you're associated with, that's them. Just know, if a lot of people think bad about you, even though it's not your fault or what you're associated with, it will still affect you. So be mindful of what you associate with. Okay, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ. Be at peace. Remember, I'm offering one-on-one consultations. Look in the description below. If you're willing to donate, then donate the links below too. I have 2 links down there. You can check my notes on Amazon, and I'll see you in my next live stream. Shalom.